Welcome to Real Vision's Trade Ideas. Today is the 30th of April, and I'm sitting down with Michele Schneider, known on the street as Mish. She is the Director of Training, Education, and Research at MarketGauge. Let's see what she's looking at now. So Mish, what is your trade idea?
3D printing, symbol is DDD.
And what is making that appealing to you right now?
I believe that it is probably one of the most undervalued in terms of the overall market and the megatrend that it represents. 3D printing is an area that is in infancy in that although the industry has grown, the projection to 2027 is it to go from a $6 billion industry to a $63 billion industry. So 3D printing, actually Chuck Hull is the creator of 3D printing, and he is the owner of that particular company, which is why I like to focus on that. But there are other ways you can trade 3D printing space, but we're going to just focus on that particular company because they're about to report earnings on May 2nd. So what makes this a very unique opportunity to talk about it right now is that it's been basing out literally after it had a huge move up years ago over the last several years. And so what does 3D printing do? I think it's going to revolutionize technology at another level the way AI has in cloud computing.
As you mentioned, 3D printing is obviously something that's looked at as part of the wave of the future, but why is it that DDD has been underperforming?
Well, they did a lot of investment in their own technology. So rather than be concerned about the bottom line for shareholders, they've been more concerned with improving their technology. And they have contracts that have been emerging as a result. One of the biggest ones most recently is with the military to use 3D printed parts as a way to just make everything lighter. And also in terms of molding plastic, they're using a technology that molds plastic at a much faster rate, which makes everything a lot more cost effective. So when I say in infancy, I believe that the company has actually been more concerned with creating this space as opposed to turning a profit. Now, as I mentioned before, it reports on May 2nd. Last quarter, it reported very well. It actually had an increase in revenues, and it made a big move up as a result, and it's come off since then. But in terms of the whole 3D space in general, besides the fact that it's being used militaristically, there's also airplane, just regular aviation companies that are starting to switch to 3D parts. In medical technology, there are tremendous breakthroughs with just something simple like a prosthetic limb being 3D printed. My dentist actually has a 3D printer if you lose a crown or need a crown. They're using it for hearts, ears. So it is so exciting, and as I said earlier, with the fact that it's so underperforming, I think it's really because it hasn't hit the retail space yet. And even though 3D printers have also increased in sales tremendously from where they were, say, even in 2016, it's still used more on the commercial level than the consumer level. What will explode 3D printing and all the other companies that are involved in 3D printing will be when those 3D printers become more affordable.
Which is how far out into the future?
Well, they've already come down in price a lot. And so I think that what they're doing is they're trying to figure out how they can actually have a 3D printer that a consumer could buy. Now, it's already gone from the very corporate level to sort of a mid-level. For example, where we live in Santa Fe, there's actually a business that you can go into that has 3D printers for your art. So if you want to create something, you rent by the hour that ability to be able to create 3D art. So it's getting there. It's just slow in the process.
And how vulnerable is this space to broader fluctuations, macro fluctuations in the economy?
Well, you know, because it's so underperforming, it actually would almost be a counter-trend type of situation. Like, for example, they're doing 3D printing of houses, not necessarily 3D systems, that particular company, but other companies are doing that. So think about that. If you can 3D print a house for $10,000, it's not a mansion, it's a small house. But considering how many houses have been destroyed with environmental factors like hurricanes and tsunamis, etc., that implication to other materials that are used traditionally for buying houses and making houses might go down. It's like what's happening with electric cars versus oil and gas fueled cars. So it'll be the same kind of thing. I think they'll have sectors of the economy that would be impacted, which could also overall infect the entire economy, but that particular industry might continue to grow because it will be more cost effective.
And why are you singling out DDD as opposed to other competition in this field?
Mostly because of Chuck Hull, who was actually the inventor, and he is the co-founder of the company. And it's also a stock that I've been following for years, so I feel very comfortable when I look at it. I know its personality and how it moves.
So how do you put this trade on?
Okay, well, as I said, it's reporting soon, so most likely it would be prudent to wait until that reports. It's been basing out over $10 for quite some time, and then actually today, April 30th, it's trading at about $10.25 to $10.35. If the report comes out very good and it starts to go up, I would say that anywhere between $11.70 and $12 would probably be the safest place to enter on strength within that range. If that happens, and it could happen very quickly, as you know, earnings can be a big mover, especially if it's a surprise. Right now, they're expecting EPS to be down, but revenues to be up by about 2%. And as I said, last quarter, it was very good. So on the strength, you can put your stop underneath 10. Now, if it actually opens up lower, I wouldn't be dismayed. I would consider that just another opportunity to buy it cheaper, but again, using good technical analysis. Your lows have been around $8, a little bit above. So if you can buy at 10 or lower, and I would say let the dust settle maybe for a day just to see, then your real risk you're talking about is under 8. And I would be very surprised to see it trade under there. So essentially, for a shorter term investor, if you're going to buy above 11.70 to 12, you can look at 10. For a more active investor, you may even want to widen that out and look to maybe say under around 8.50. Now, with that said, if it takes out 13, that will be significant because it then takes out the 50-week moving average, which is about price action for a year. So that's a significant breakout. 1370 was the 2018 high. So that's really where you want to get through. Then I would be taking some profit around 13 to 1370 in case it can't make it through, especially if you're a more active trader. But if it breaks through that area, you're really not looking at anything in terms of significant resistance till about $17. And then after that, it can go up to 21.50 to 22, and then 23 is really where you start to see a long-term trend line come in using a moving average that is a 80-month moving average, so roughly a business cycle of close to 7 years. We get up there and we go through there. Well, this is a stock that was trading well over 100 not too long ago. And that's why I think the risk is very, very minimal, but the reward can be extremely profitable, especially, as I said, if they start to figure out more and more how to hit the consumer market.
With that said, what is the risk, or what might make you change your mind here?
Nothing.
Nothing, wow.
No, I mean, in terms of price management and position management and price management, I think you have to be aware of that bottom line price. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm pretty convinced that we will not see that level, and that the area has fallen out of favor because the focus in the market has been, until very recently, technology companies, traditional technology companies. But that's why I watch it extremely carefully, because I'm 100% convinced that this type of technology, not only is it going to be a boon for us as a society, but also a boon for the stock down the road.
So clearly you see a lot of future potential here, but for this trade in particular, what is your time horizon?
Well, again, with earnings coming right around the corner, it could be very quickly where you get to that first level of entering on strength and then seeing a profit almost immediately, because the short float on this stock is tremendous. There's been very little activity in this stock since last earnings report, where it went up tremendously and hit that 1370 high. So I would say initially you could see a profit right away to that 2018 high. And then you probably would have to sit. And yes, there might be some influence if the market particularly crashes. But otherwise, I would just sit patiently and wait to see what happens if it starts getting through that 2018 high that we've had so far and heading its way up towards 17. And that would be more of an intermediate term. Longer term, I see it going to about 23 before I reevaluate.
And are you personally trading DDD?
Yes, and I have for the last several months. So we caught the last quarter profit, got out after we took some profit and then scratched on the trade, and we're in it again currently with a relatively tight stop, looking forward to see what happens on Wednesday when it reports earnings. If it does well, we will definitely add to that trade.
And can you give us the 30-second pitch for this trade idea?
30-second pitch is if you want to get into an industry and a stock that's been so relatively undervalued, but an industry that has so much growth potential, then 3D Systems is definitely a good way to play. There are other ways to play. There are other companies, and there's even an ETF, PRNT, but I like to focus on 3D Systems, because of Chuck Hull being the creator and still very involved with the company.
All right, Mish, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to be here, and I hope this trade turns out to be a wonderful opportunity for your listeners.
So Mish is interested in 3D printing. She believes the industry is a mega trend and specifically likes buying shares of 3D Systems. Mish thinks this undervalued stock has great management and expects it to outperform the rest of the industry. She suggests buying 3D Systems, ticker symbol DDD, at $12. Her target price is $23 with a stop loss at $8. And she likes entering the trade after earnings season, and the time horizon for this trade is 12 months. Just remember that this was a trade idea and not investment advice. You should do your own due diligence, assess your risk-reward threshold, and invest accordingly. For Real Vision Trader, I'm Alona Minkowski.